A very good morning to all of you. Welcome back to the channel. So let's start with the analysis video for 1st of August 2023. So firstly, we are taking up the Hindu newspaper and the important topics. So firstly, regarding Manipur, so Supreme Court, it is directed to the Manipur government that give us complete breakdown of 6,000 FIRs. मतलब उसको प्रॉपरली उसका ब्रेक डाउन करके एक्चुअल क्या चीज है वो इन्फॉर्मेशन मणिपुर गवर्नमेंट को सुप्रीम कोर्ट को सबमिट करनी है एंड the court it proposes appointing its own special investigation team and bench it is surprised to find कि center and the state governments they are groping in the dark for facts about crimes which are public knowledge reported widely in the national media and case it has also been listed for today. So basically we are seeing कि Supreme Court is taking the lead and it would be going into all the investigations of firstly of obviously these 6,000 FIRs which is related to the ethnic violence which has happened in the state, and it is found कि जो center and state governments है they are in a way trying to hide the dark facts about जो भी crime हुए during this time period in the state. So no excuse for violence against Manipur women. आप इस चीज के लिए कोई excuse नहीं दे सकते हो. And on the grounds ki crimes they have happened to women in other parts of the country as well. So seriously, like agar ye excuse diya ja raha hai to like I'm short of words ki kya bolna chahiye iske baad. So see, Chief Justice of India says that what were the police doing from May 4 to May 18? The incident it came to light involving 3 women who were paraded naked in the presence of a mob. At least 2 of them they were raped. So what were the police doing for 14 days? So we also raised similar questions that when FIR was filed for this particular incident, तो उसके बाद पुलिस ने एक्शन क्यों नहीं लिया? Once this video went viral on social media, only then we saw police making arrests. So definitely these are valid and relevant questions. Is it pointing towards the failure of police in the state? And this incident also happened in the presence of police. So it raises severe questions against the, utility of police forces in tackling such situations in the state. So this Manipur issue, इसकी वजह से we are seeing कि parliament भी नहीं function हो पा रहा है. Opposition it is raising concerns about this and it is not letting it function. तो उसकी वजह से parliament को adjourn किया जा रहा है. जो भी daily meetings हो रही है लोकसभा राज्यसभा की कहीं ना कहीं, तो parliamentary disruption is what we are seeing. तो कहीं ना कहीं obviously functioning the parliament पे impact हो रहा है. The effectiveness of the functioning that is getting impacted. And we are seeing clashes in Haryana's Noor district. So 2 home guards among 3 people have been killed during these clashes. So it was basically a communal clash, which we see between 2 groups in the Noor district of Haryana during the Bridge Mandal Jal Abhishek Yatra of the Vishwa Hindu Parishad. So as a deputy commissioner, आप क्या steps लोगे अगर आप किसी state में posted हो and you are seeing such type of clashes happening in a particular district? So as a case study, you can understand and such types of questions they are asked in GS4 paper. So इस तरीके से you need to think अगर आपको ऐसा article read करते हो तो. So कहीं ना कहीं यहाँ पे भी again मॉब हैंडलिंग वाला टॉपिक आ जाता है. आप कैसे इंश्योर करोगे कि मॉब इज हैंडल इफेक्टिवली एंड ऐसे क्लैशेस आप प्रिवेंट कर सको. सो भोपाल गैस ट्रेजेडी की अगर हम बात करें तो वी सी की 337 million ton of undisposed toxic waste is at Bhopal disaster site. So panel headed by the environment minister is proposed 126 crore rupees to Madhya Pradesh government for the disposal of this waste. and CPCP report has said this. So NGT, it had in March 2022 ordered the government to take action within 6 months. So within 6 months was a time period, and we can see almost 1 year has passed and nothing has been done. So the gas tragedy, it happened in 1984, and जो waste है it is yet to be disposed. So अभी तक कोई action नहीं लिया गया. आप find out करोगे CPCB के बारे में, उसका क्या role है, क्या previous important ऐसे incidents या cases हुए हैं, all of that, and NGT's role, that is also extremely important. So हमने पहले बात करी थी effectiveness of the presence of NGT. NGT के बनने के बाद कैसे चीजें change हुई हैं in the environment context, तो उसके बारे में आप थोड़ा सोचोगे. So interest of national security from the defense perspective, it trumps the public interest. मतलब जब आप बात करो interest of national security versus public interest, तो priority दी जाएगी national security को. So the interest of national security from the defense perspective, that assumes greater national significance than the public interest, according to the High Court of Karnataka. So it has quashed a tender that was awarded by the public sector undertaking, Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited. So tender, it had gone to a private company having a consortium agreement with a Chinese company, contrary to the Union government's restriction imposed on the bidders from the countries sharing land borders with India. So that's why this tender, it was paused. So again, यहाँ पे जो national security वाला perspective है वो ज़्यादा important हो जाता है compared to the public interest. So as a case study, अगर आप इस topic को समझोगे, villagers, they attack the houses over reports of urine being mixed in water bottle of school girl. So police used the force and resorted to lathi charge to disperse the villagers who stormed into an area of Loharia in Rajasthan's Bhilwara district. And some boys, they were staying there, they had allegedly mixed urine in the water bottle of a school girl. So villagers, they allegedly hurled stones at the houses in the locality. So this is actually a real ground situation. This is real India. So you need to basically think कि कैसे again आप कैसे ऐसी situation को handle करोगे. So we seeing lack of action. Villagers, they were agitated over the lack of action against the boys by the principal of the government senior secondary school. So school level पे क्या actions लिए जा सकते हैं, and again you being the DC, आप क्या role play कर सकते हो, constructive role क्या रहेगा and dispersing the situation. So a note in the bag has also been found. So girl who's studying in class 8 said in her complaint that she had detected a urine-like odor coming from her water bottle and found a slip with "I love you" written on it in her bag. So she has accused 3 boys from the school of harassing her. So this is regarding the abolition of Article 370. So this case has been listed to be for a hearing in the Supreme Court. So original text and spirit, that counts. So on 2nd of August, Supreme Court, it will begin the hearing. So हमारे लिए Supreme Court की क्या judgment रहेगी वो ज़्यादा important है. And बाकी you can just have an overview of this article. So semiconductor mission, इसके बारे में बहुत डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. ये टॉपिक ऑलमोस्ट एवरी डे वी आर सीइंग वन आर्टिकल और द अदर. सो पिच टू ड्रॉ इन सेमीकंडक्टर प्लेयर्स, इट मस्ट गो बियॉन्ड द इंसेंटिव्स. मतलब इंसेंटिव्स एक तरीका है ऑफ अट्रैक्टिंग द इन्वेस्टर्स टुवर्ड्स इंडिया एंड मेक इन्वेस्टमेंट्स in semiconductor manufacturing and the fabs designing and all that assembly से related. So हम पहले डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. And obviously इस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में राइट नाउ अगर हम इंसेंटिव्स एज अ बेसिस ऑफ स्कीम की बात करें तो राइट नाउ वी आर हैविंग PLI स्कीम. सो इसके अलावा और क्या इनिशिएटिव्स ले जा सकते हैं बाय द गवर्नमेंट, दैट बिकम्स इम्पोर्टेंट. And apart from this, bilaterally, we are dealing with countries to increase cooperation and increase India's self-reliance in semiconductor production. Why there's basically a need for having that self-sustainability. अब इस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम पे क्या बेसिकली क्यों इतना इम्पोर्टेंट हो जाता है, तो हम बात कर रहे हैं आत्मनिर्भरता की. एंड देन अगेन हमने प्रीवियसली बात करी थी कि चाइना की जर्नी से हम कैसे सीख सकते हैं, व्हाट आर द लेसन्स फॉर इंडिया. So recalibrating India's clean cooking strategy. So over last 15 years, Government of India it has attempted to replicate the success that LPG adoption it has seen in the urban households, in poorer and the rural households. So basically, इसको expand करना up till the remote areas. That was one of the goals. And Gramin Vitrak Yojana 2009 में launch की गई. It has helped grow the rural distributor base from 18% to 60%. And ambitious जो प्रधानमंत्री उज्ज्वला योजना है, it has also provided more than 9.5 crore new households with the LPG connections since 2016. So this is another scheme. So with near universal coverage of LPG, this is nothing short of an administrative and operational miracle. So talking about the success of Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana and the Gramin Vitrak Yojana, दिस इज वन डिमेंशन जिसके बारे में आप लोग बात कर सकते हो. एलपीजी की स्टोरी यहाँ पे पूरी मेंशन की गई है कि रीसेंट पास्ट की अगर हम बात करें तो शेयर ऑफ इंडियन हाउस होल्ड्स यूजिंग एलपीजी एज द प्राइमरी कुकिंग फ्यूल इट हैज इंक्रीज टू 70% इन 2020 फ्रॉम 33% इन 2011. सो यहाँ पे हमने बहुत ज्यादा वी कैन से अडॉप्शन ऑफ क्लीन कुकिंग फ्यूल वी हैव recorded that. उसके अलावा it was clear indication कि Indian households जो हैं they wanted to adopt clean cooking solutions and the policy it could overcome preferences and financial barriers also. So ये जो challenges थे policy के through we were able to overcome them, and that's why we are seeing such a huge level of adoption by the households. बट अगर हम ग्लोबल इवेंट्स की बात करें दैट अनफोल्डेड सिंस कोविड-19 पैंडेमिक 2020 से अगर हम बात करें तो वी सी हाउ थिंग्स हैव चेंज्ड ड्रामेटिकली, एंड उसकी वजह से वी आर सीइंग न्यू challenges emerging. So obviously one was COVID-19 pandemic, then ensuing loss of the livelihoods was उसकी वजह से people lost their income, and then we had the Russia-Ukraine war, so resulting surge in volatility in the crude and the product prices. So these were the other challenges. So they have dented even a near-term prospect of universal use of LPG in the Indian households. So price fluctuation and then again loss of livelihood opportunities by the people because of the pandemic. उसकी वजह से we are seeing कि कहीं ना कहीं जो हम सक्सेस या प्रोग्रेस देख रहे थे उस पर इम्पैक्ट हुआ है. So 2020 से गवर्नमेंट डिसाइडेड टू विड्रॉ जो भी सब्सिडी प्रोवाइड की जा रही थी फॉर दी एलपीजी कंजम्पशन, वो गवर्नमेंट ने विड्रॉ कर ली. Financial year 2021 में 3 free cylinders they were provided to all the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana consumers as part of the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. So Garib Kalyan Yojana के through 3 cylinders free of cost provide किए जाने लगे, and this drove the annual refill rates for the LPG among the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana consumers to their highest levels. So ये कुछ government ने we can say fiscal measures लिए during the pandemic, and possible we are seeing 24 crore free cylinders they are available for taking, only 14 crore they were actually consumed. So nominal subsidy of rupees 200 per cylinder that was reinstated for the beneficiaries of the Ujjwala Yojana in September 2022, and it helped improve the refill rates. So कहीं ना कहीं हम ये देख रहे थे कि refill rates fall हो रहे थे, तो again government came up with this nominal subsidy of rupees 200 per cylinder under this Ujjwala scheme. Or talking about another challenge, so that's India's dependence on imported LPG. So it has steadily increased over 65%. So earlier it was 46%, and right now we are seeing that जो हमारी डिपेंडेंस है ऑन दी एलपीजी इंपोर्ट दैट हैज इंक्रीज। सो आज के टाइम में हम बात करते हैं गैस बेस्ड इकोनॉमी की भी, तो वहाँ पे भी इफ ऑब्वियसली दैट इज अ लॉन्ग टर्म प्रोसेस, बट इम्प्रूवमेंट्स हमें ज़रूर हेल्प करने वाली हैं इन दिस स्कीम एज वेल, क्योंकि वो कहीं ना कहीं हमारा जो डिपेंडेंस है ऑन द इम्पोर्ट ऑफ एलपीजी वो कम कर देगा। उसकी वजह से ऑब्वियसली जो हमारा we can say in terms of imported inflation या जो fluctuations अगर हमें कभी देखने को मिलती है in terms of imports, तो वो हम easily handle कर सकेंगे। And we have seen a near doubling in the LPG prices since May 2020 in the nominal terms. So this is another challenge. मतलब obviously जो globally rates change होंगे, fluctuate होंगे, domestic market में भी वही prices would be followed up. So अगर कहीं ना कहीं सेल्फ सफिशिएंसी होगी तो इवन इन टर्म्स ऑफ प्राइसिंग ऑफ द एलपीजी, तो वहां पे भी हमें कहीं ना कहीं कुछ अमाउंट ऑफ ऑटोनॉमी जरूर मिल पाएगी। So diversity in clean cooking. So in order to resolve this challenge or this impasse, India's clean cooking policy जो है, it must actively pivot towards adoption of a suite of clean cooking technologies, shift from LPG only strategy. मतलब we need to diversify the clean cooking sources. And right now जैसे कि अभी हम देखें कि major dependence हमारा LPG as a cooking fuel के ऊपर है, तो यहाँ पे हमें we need to look for other alternatives. So you can see examples are also mentioned. We can explore electronic cooking, including induction cooktops. Then it can significantly offset the need for the flame-based cooking. So this can be explored further, and near 100% access to electricity होने के बाद, तो obviously we can basically see more households adopting this type of cooking methodology as well. Urban areas में nearly 10% ऐसे households हैं which are already using the electrical appliances for their cooking needs, and they can see the bigger transition that we want to realize in the rural areas. So इसको rural areas तक भी लेके जाने की जरूरत है और अर्बन एरियाज में और एक्सपैंड करने की जरूरत है। सो डिमांड फॉर दीज अर्ली अडॉप्टर्स इट कैन देन स्पर द डोमेस्टिक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग। ऑब्वियसली अगर डिमांड बहुत ज्यादा इंक्रीज हो जाएगी तो डोमेस्टिक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग को भी बूस्ट मिलेगा, उसकी वजह से वी कैन अगेन सी एम्प्लॉयमेंट अपॉर्चुनिटीज बीइंग जनरेटेड। सो कहीं ना कहीं एक ये जो वर्चुअस साइकिल है ये स्टार्ट हो जाएगी। एंड ऑब्वियसली जो प्रेशियस आउटफ्लो है ऑफ फॉरेक्स रिजर्व्स वो भी हम धीरे धीरे कम करने लग जाएंगे। सो दिस रिक्वायर्स टारगेटेड सपोर्ट इन द इंटरिम फॉर द मैन्युफैक्चरर्स टू एम्ब्रेस द एफिशिएंसी एंड डिजाइन फॉर द नीड्स ऑफ इंडियन हाउस होल्ड। सो ऑब्वियसली फिर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर को भी कुछ इंसेंटिव्स, कुछ गवर्नमेंट सपोर्ट चाहिएगा। सो दैट नीड्स टू बी ऑब्वियसली planned properly. So this is something again related to the clean cooking strategy. So these were the different dimensions जो हमने डिस्कस करे in terms of क्या challenges है और क्या हमें करना चाहिए। So hybrid electric vehicles imperative, we're talking about them. So with their higher fuel economy and reduced carbon emissions, जो hybrid electric vehicles हैं, they offer an opportunity for economically developing countries to kickstart the shift towards sustainable transportation while addressing infrastructure और जो cost challenges related है with electric vehicles. And अगेन हम यहाँ सस्टेनेबल ट्रांसपोर्टेशन की जो ब्रॉडर टॉपिक है इसकी बात कर रहे हैं, तो इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स इज वन कंपोनेंट ऑफ इट। नाउ यू नीड टू थिंक अबाउट कि और क्या अदर पॉसिबिलिटीज हो सकती हैं। फ्यूल सेल की आप बात कर सकते हो, ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन की आप बात कर सकते हो, इथेनॉल ब्लेंडेड पेट्रोल की बात कर सकते हो, एंड देन ऑब्वियसली इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स आर देयर। So Akira is a type of ransomware. Why has the government issued a warning against it? So firstly, तो यही पता होना चाहिए what is Akira. So it's a type of ransomware. So government ने warning issue की है against the users and the corporations to implement robust cyber security measures so as to protect against this ransomware's double extortion tactics and potential data leaks. So cyber security measures overall एक major important topic है. So the Computer Emergency Response Team of India, it has issued alert for this ransomware, which is named as Akira. Ransomware is found to target both Windows and Linux devices. So these are at high risk, and it steals and encrypts the data, forcing victims to pay double ransom for decryption and recovery. So this is being witnessed. So how does this ransomware actually works या कैसे ये attack carry out करता है? So it terminates जो भी active Windows services है using the Windows Restart Manager API, preventing any interference with the encryption process. And it is designed not to encrypt the program data, recycle bin, boot system, volume information, all of these. That is system stability. So it also avoids modifying systems, Windows system files with extensions like all these. And once जो भी sensitive data है that is stolen and encrypted, so ransomware, it leaves behind note which is named as Akira, which includes information about the attack and the link to Akira's leak and negotiation site. So ये सारी information बाद में once the attack is carried out, पूरा data leak हो जाता है, a person get to know कि the device has been attacked. So कैसे ये ransomware spread हो रहा है या how it is basically entering into the devices? So it is spread through spear phishing emails. So emails के through वो basically they contain malicious attachments in the form of archived content. So archived content files हैं which are sent to you through emails. So other methods used to infect the devices includes drive-by download and cyber attack that unintentionally downloads the malicious code onto the device. So you need to follow the basic internet hygiene and the protocols for your data safety. So core sector की growth की बात करें तो it touches 5-month high in June and it is at 8.2% is the growth recorded. So definitely this is showing more, you can say, a positive and a healthy picture and showing that yes, Indian economy is going strong forward. So 7 of the 8 core sectors, they have registered an uptick in the month and they constitute 40% of the index of industrial production. So weightage की बात कर रहे हैं. So core growth, you can see trend, it was falling and right now we are seeing, मतलब अभी काफी time से it was almost at the same level after a significant fall. So now it is again, we are seeing again an upside in the core sector growth. So yes, that is something which is important for us because it is an important indicator to assess the performance economy या फिर to judge की how economies किस सिचुएशन में अभी इकोनॉमी है, कैसी परफॉर्मेंस है, सो उसको जज करने के लिए इट इज वन ऑफ द इम्पोर्टेंट इंडिकेटर्स. सो जो बेसिक्स आपको पता होना चाहिए 8 कोर सेक्टर्स कौन से हैं एंड उसके अलावा अगर कोई मेजर चेंजेस हमें देखने को मिल रहा है सो दैट कैन आल्सो बी टेकन इनटू अकाउंट. So ISRO, it has successfully put the Chandrayaan 3 in translunar orbit. So now we'll start moving more closer towards moon. So ISRO, it has performed the translunar injection to slingshot the Chandrayaan 3 towards moon. And it was performed successfully. So far the mission has been successful. So according to IMD, it says कि El Nino का effect की वजह से, उसके impact की वजह से, we are going to see suppressed rainfall in the second half of the monsoon. So अभी तक तो we are not seeing any kind of major impact of El Nino on the monsoon rain, but during the second half we expect as per the IMD forecast. So we need to be cautious and again then concerns for food inflation or increase हो जाएंगी. So कल हमने properly काफी अच्छे से in detail discuss किया about cereal inflation and food inflation. World page पे we see Pakistan, the toll rises 54 in suicide blast. So Islamic State claims the responsibility for the attack that has injured more than 100 people and over 500 people, they were present during the time of the blast. So Nigeria की अगर हम बात करें, so we saw a military coup. So we are expecting, according to this article, कि France it is plotting to intervene militarily to reinstate the president. Bazoum says the Niger junta. So कहीं ना कहीं again third party or third country का intervention, it might escalate things further. Like we saw कि Yemen में जिस तरीके से things they went by, we saw Saudi Arabia and then Iran on the opposite sides. So government has floated the draft national deep tech startup policy. So firstly, draft, obviously this is in draft stage. So जो provisions हैं, you can just go through it. And Office of Principal Scientific Advisor to the government put out a draft national deep tech startup policy for the public comments following two versions that were iterated at high levels with the other government departments. So policy it seeks to ensure कि जो India की position है in the global deep tech value chain in areas like semiconductors, artificial intelligence, and space technology. So that needs to increase, and we need to strengthen our position in these respective areas. So policy it seeks to bolster research and development in deep tech startups, which work on the fundamental and technical problems like firms that monetize technology with distinguished business models. So it seeks to provide and find approaches to provide financing. So financing is one major area to these startups at the critical moments, and simplify intellectual property regime for such startups and ease the regulatory requirements, Joanne. So fiscal deficit, it has touched 25.3% of the full year target in April, June. So Center's fiscal deficit at the end of the first quarter was 25%. So this has already been basically spent. And यहाँ बोल सकते हैं जो fiscal deficit target है 25% of that has been we can say कि achieve हो चुका है. उतना achievements तो नहीं बोलेंगे क्योंकि it is we're talking about fiscal deficit, but इतना हम already spend कर चुके हैं जब हम fiscal deficit की बात कर रहे हैं. So US is the biggest export market for India-made smartphones according to government data. So India exported smartphone worth, we can say almost $2.5 billion in April to May this fiscal year to US. So it has emerged to be one of the largest markets for India's smartphones. Coming to the Mint newspaper, so capital expenditure and tax devolution, it boosts the Q1 fiscal deficit. So capital expenditure, obviously अगर government spend कर रही है पैसा from the income, तो उसकी वजह से fiscal deficit होता है जब income कम है and आपको spend ज़्यादा करना है, expenditure ज़्यादा करना है. And obviously tax devolution to these states, so उसकी वजह से भी fiscal deficit has increased. So जो Q1 fiscal deficit था वो कहीं ना कहीं हमने अभी just देखा था कि 25% जो भी target है वो already fulfill हो चुका है. So deficit reaches 25% यहाँ पे that is the same thing that is mentioned. And फिर जो fiscal deficit है या जो government budget है हम बात करते हैं उसको break कर रखा है. So ये different components है. Total receipts कितनी है, revenue expenditure, capital expenditure, total expenditure कितना हुआ और fiscal deficit कितना है. तो 25% already we have achieved. Coming to Financial Express newspaper, so foreign gaming firms के लिए either they'll have to register or they'll have to leave India. So this is been issued by GST Council. not GST Council, basically it is going to meet tomorrow. So government has basically issued this thing to the foreign gaming firms. So implementation of 28% GST is same को definitely all the gaming firms जो इंडिया में function कर रही है, they'll have to comply with this. So agenda की अगर हम बात करें GST Council के, so foreign firms they may be told to register for the GST or appoint agent in India to comply with this 28% tax on the turnover. एंड जो टर्नओवर रहेगा फॉरेन गेमिंग फर्म्स का, इट वाज अराउंड वी सी कि $10 billion था. एंड नॉन कंप्लायंट फर्म्स जो हैं दे विल बी बार्ड फ्रॉम प्रोवाइडिंग सर्विसेज इन इंडिया अंडर द आईटी एक्ट. So to determine कि कितनी value होने वाली of the supply in case of online gaming, so council it will consider amending the central GST Act. So let's see कि outcome क्या रहेगा GST council meeting का. So that's one thing. And इसके अलावा जो GST council meeting में अगर हमें delays देखने को मिल रहे हैं या we are not seeing कि जो results आ रहे हैं GST council से, whether it is helping us or not in terms of tackling the challenges as far as GST is concerned. So that is another dimension जिसके बारे में again you need to find about different facts and nuances. फिजिकल डेफिसिट वाला हम ऑलरेडी कवर कर चुके हैं. यू कैन फाइंड आउट अबाउट कि फॉर्मूला क्या होता है, जो डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ डेफिसिट्स होते हैं, फिजिकल डेफिसिट, रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट, देन प्राइमरी डेफिसिट, एंड उनकी क्या देन implication क्या है या importance क्या in terms of understanding the government's fiscal position. So GST meeting के context में hold the GST meet on the frauds. So this is coming from the West Bengal CM's principal chief advisor कि humongous fraud taking place in the country today and deep suffering of the MSME in the current GST system. Both of them require a total rethink by the central government and GST council on very structure and function of GST. So this is one point of view. Again, इससे जो हम take away ले सकते हैं, जो फेक बिल्स जनरेट किए जा रहे हैं, दैट इज अगेन मेजर इशू जिसको टैकल करना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. आउटपुट ऑफ कोर सेक्टर के बारे में हम बात कर चुके हैं. वी हैव सीन हाउ इट इज चेंजिंग, ट्रेंड हम देख चुके हैं. So here we have all the business news. So we are seeing good returns from the ESG funds, and like we have mutual funds, so ESG funds, they basically revolve around environment, social and governance thing. So if you have invested in such types of funds, so definitely you can connect with this topic, the amount of returns that you're getting through your investment. So investors, they are going to have a larger product basket to choose from. So here are different ESG equity funds, like you have for SBI from Axis providing you ICICI Prudential ESG fund is there. So maximum asset under management है SBI Magnum Equity ESG fund के under. Time period 1 year के लिए you can invest, years के लिए you can invest. So that's there. And obviously आपको पहले पूरा understanding, clarity, awareness होना important है before investing in any instrument. Taking up Hindustan Times newspaper. So let's see the important topics for today. So जो topics हैं ये सब हम already discuss कर चुके हैं, will not repeat them again. So e-invoice की अगर हम बात करें, doing business with e, so you can see e-invoices, they bear unique invoice reference number mentioned होता है. They are generated through invoice registration portal. So e-invoicing के क्या benefits है? You can see ये सारे benefits mentioned है. Uniform standardized invoice होता है. Auto reporting to GST portal होता है, आपको कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं है. Auto generation of e-way bills, lesser compliance burden रहता है. Reduction in the transcriptional errors, auto populated GST return होता है. Seamless transmission of invoice, auto sharing with the buyers for reconciliation, and lesser paperwork. So these are all the benefits of it. So making India a global manufacturing hub in chemicals and petrochemicals. So scope और areas क्या हैं of further exploration and growth, key features क्या होने वाले हैं, and the eligibility conditions. So all of these are clearly mentioned over here. So Prime Minister says that technology for us, that is a medium to empower the people of the country. For us, technology is the mainstay of making the country आत्मनिर्भर. So technology जो general knowledge हमारी है, जो basic understanding है, कहाँ पे हम use कर सकते हैं, वो है. But even आपको पता होना चाहिए जो hidden dimensions है, जिसके बारे में obviously इतनी ज्यादा बात नहीं की जाती है. If they are visible in your answer, तो obviously it can fetch you brownie points. So स्कोप और एरिया की बात करें, स्पेशलिटी केमिकल्स, केमिकल वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट, ग्रीन केमिस्ट्री, रूट डाउनस्ट्रीम मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, एग्रोकेमिकल. सो यहाँ पे वी हैव लॉट ऑफ स्कोप. की फीचर्स रहेंगे फाइनेंशियल असिस्टेंस टू द इंडियन कंपनीज for technology commercialization, evaluation on the basis of scientific, technological, financial, commercial merit. Funding shall be in the form of loan, equity, or grant. So eligibility, Indian companies registered under the Companies Act and startups with recognition certificate from DPIIT, they are eligible for this thing. तो अभी जो न्यू फॉरेस्ट बिल पास हुआ है, इट कैन हर्ट द ट्राइबल. सो ये एक डायमेंशंस के बारे में हम बात कर रहे हैं. जो बाकी कंसर्न्स, ओवरऑल कंसर्न्स है विद दिस अमेंडमेंट बिल, वो हम डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. सो लेट्स टॉक इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ द ट्राइबल इंटरेस्ट एंड जो चेंजेस भी बिल में किए गए हैं. So it began in the colonial era. Hostile attitudes of the authorities towards the forest dwelling tribes, they were first ceded by the British government. So us time pe, that's how things worked. And we see ki these marginalized groups as encroachers on the forest land that needed to be resettled elsewhere. So उस time पे ये perspective था, and that's how basically this thing was introduced, we can say. So Agricultural Commission of 1976, उन्होंने classify किया forest tribes as impediments in the development of forest. मतलब forest को आप कैसे और develop करोगे, वो development नहीं बोलते, उसको हम destruction of forest बोलते हैं. बट अगेन यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है impediments, मतलब ट्राइब्स जो फॉरेस्ट एरियाज में रह रहे थे, they were kind of रोड ब्लॉक फॉर डेवलपमेंट ऑफ फॉरेस्ट. सो फॉरेस्ट डेवलपमेंट नहीं, उसको डिस्ट्रक्शन बोला जाता है. सो फॉरेस्ट पॉलिसी ऑफ 1988, इट वाज द फर्स्ट पब्लिक डॉक्यूमेंट वेयर द गवर्नमेंट एक्सप्लिसिटली कंसीडर्ड दैट देयर एग्जिस्टेड forest dwelling tribal population है. So this was basically recognized in 1988, and the policy थी, it also included its in its objective security of fodder, fuel, and other requirements of this population. So after this acknowledgement, we see that it has remained largely on paper for the next 2 decades. So basically, we did not see anything changing on the ground, and there was little recognition of the people's rights की अगर आप बात करो, who lived in forest. And it was only with the passage of this Forest Rights Act 2006 that the system accepted millions of tribal and other people as the rightful dwellers of forest. Rightful dwellers of forest उनको 2006 में recognize किया गया. So FRA compliance in the FC processes required recognition of the rights to be completed in the proposed format. In the proposed forest to be diverted and titles be issued, details of the proposal, impacts on scheduled tribes, forest dwellings, other forest dwellers be placed in the front of Gram Sabhas and उनके free prior informed consent वो important हो गया before sending the proposal for the stage 1 clearance. So Forest Conservation Act, it was passed in 1980 when the then central government, it realized कि जो states and they were diverting the forest land for non-forest purposes. So that was happening at alarming rate. So उस time पे in 1980 we came up with this Forest Conservation Act. So basically एक discussion या topic of debate ये भी होता है Forest Conservation Act versus the Forest Rights Act. तो आपको दोनों साइड के positives लेके आने हैं and जो concerns हैं how these two acts they can help in tackling them. इस तरीके से you need to put forward your points. So 2022 में कुछ rules भी change किए गए and that involved doing away with the requirement of seeking consent and leaving process of recognition of the rights to be carried out after stage 1 clearance. So अगर stage 1 clearance मिल चुकी है तो उसके बाद basically जो आपको steps लेने थे या clearances required थे उनको थोड़ा dilute कर दिया गया. So this became a bit of a fait accompli because जो marginalized tribes थे, forest dwelling communities थी, they were often left with little option other than accepting whatever compensation उनको मिल रही थी by the government and hand over the forest areas to the project promoters. So इस तरीके से चीजें dilute हुई, हम बोल सकते हैं rights of forest dwellers भी कहीं ना कहीं led to the violation of their rights. बट अगर हम आज की बात करें तो फॉरेस्ट कंजर्वेशन अमेंडमेंट बिल 2023 इट थ्रेटन्स मोर लार्ज स्केल डिसरप्शंस, मतलब उसी डायरेक्शन में और लार्ज स्केल में एक बड़े तरीके से कहीं ना कहीं हमें यही इंडिकेशन मिल रहा है थ्रू दिस रीसेंट अमेंडमेंट एक्ट. So the bill it sailed through Lok Sabha and it is likely to be passed by the Rajya Sabha soon as well. And we see that though the government's numerical strength in the parliament meant that the passage of the bill was not likely a given thing, the fact that there was very little debate on the pertinent issues because we are seeing कि parliamentary disruptions भी हो रही हैं साथ के साथ, that's another thing. But हम यहाँ पे we're just talking about how basically concerns क्या है जो recent amendments introduce की गई हैं. तो पहला तो यही है जो जनरल कंसर्न्स की मैं बात कर रही थी, नैरो डेफिनेशन ऑफ फॉरेस्ट. सो जो फॉरेस्ट की डेफिनेशन है उसको डाइल्यूट कर दिया गया है. मेक द लार्ज ट्रैक्ट्स ऑफ लैंड अवेलेबल फॉर डेवलपमेंट एंड इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्रोजेक्ट्स. सो इंस्टेड ऑफ टॉकिंग अबाउट सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट इन अ सस्टेन्ड एंड एनवायरमेंटली सेफ मैनर, उसकी बात करने के बजाय वी आर जस्ट सीइंग कि जो अमेंडमेंट्स हैं वो जस्ट they're focusing upon development and construction and infrastructure projects. So उसको आप sustainable तरीके से भी कर सकते हो instead of being so reckless and showing obviously you're only concerned about development and infrastructure activities. So that's the thing. So अभी जो recent amendments किए गए हैं, propose किए गए हैं, they have the potential to hasten the diversion of the forest for the non-forest purposes, especially ऐसे cases में where the forest land it has been classified as degraded forest land. So the biodiverse natural forest it cannot be compensated by any artificial plantation. Obviously ये we can't say कि 100% एक ऐसा alternative है या compensation कर सकते हैं अगर आप बोलो कि कोई फॉरेस्ट लैंड डाइवर्ट किया जा रहा है फॉर एनी प्रोजेक्ट पर्पस या एनी डेवलपमेंट प्रोसेस एंड आप कॉम्पनसेशन के नाम पे आप सैपलिंग्स दूसरे किसी एरिया में प्लांट कर देते हो तो आप नहीं बोल सकते कि इट विल कॉम्पनसेट फॉर द फॉरेस्ट दैट यू विल बी डिस्ट्रॉइंग. दैट इज ऑब्वियसली साउंड्स वेरी लॉजिकल and that is not just possible. So it deserves to be debated and discussed in detail. Obviously we can't take things lightly because again we are seeing कि कहीं ना कहीं it will also contribute to climate change and further escalating the impacts in future. Coming to Indian Express newspaper, so again, I think we can move on directly to the editorial page. So this we've already seen benefits of e-invoicing, e-bills, e-GST bills जो generate किए जाते हैं. So Indian economy की बात करें तो it is better placed than others, but pain points they persist. Obviously, आप दो डायमेंशन से सोचोगे इस टॉपिक के बारे में जब हम इंडियन इकोनॉमी की बात कर रहे हैं, करंट सिचुएशन की बात कर रहे हैं. एक आप सोचोगे या ऑब्वियसली यू विल थिंक अबाउट द पॉइंट्स ग्लोबल लेवल पे कि इंडियन इकोनॉमी की परफॉर्मेंस आज के टाइम में कंपेयर टू द डेवलप्ड वर्ल्ड किस पोजीशन में हम हैं. दैट इज वन थिंग. एंड देन फ्रॉम द पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ एट द नेशनल लेवल आप बात करोगे कि क्या डिस्पाइट दीज पॉजिटिव थिंग्स क्या चैलेंजेस हैं या क्या ऐसे एरियाज हैं जहाँ पे स्टिल वी नीड टू पे आवर अटेंशन एंड ऑब्वियसली वी कांट टेक थिंग्स फॉर ग्रांटेड एंड लाइटली. सो ये दो एक वाइडर पर्सपेक्टिव आपको क्लियरली मिल जाएगा. सो पॉलिसी मस्ट फोकस ऑन रेजिंग पोटेंशियल फॉर ग्रोथ. So India, it is a geo-economic sweet spot. So right now we are in a geo-economic sweet spot. And ruling dispensations, careful navigation of the changing global scenario following Russia-Ukraine war की वजह से how things have changed, and जो economic slowdown हमें देखने को मिल रहा है in the developed world, that is another thing. So it has created space for the country to buy oil from Russia. So this was one of the benefits out of this war for India. And coming at a time when we see many countries, they are struggling to maintain their economic momentum. So economic momentum की भी अगर हम बात करें तो that is also we are seeing strong in India. So with the economy seeming to hold up, but India में it is we are seeing relatively better positioned. So यहाँ पे हम economic slowdown की अगर बात करें, recession की हम बात करते हैं, eurozone की specifically बात करते हैं कि how basically we expect the countries or moving more closer towards recession. So IMF maybe recently it has raised its forecast for the country's growth. So that is one thing which shows key yes, momentum is going, the momentum it remains strong in the economy. Inflation it has remained below the upper threshold of the central bank's inflation targeting framework. But again, food inflation आज के टाइम में हमारे लिए एक concern, major concern है. उसके अलावा हमने देखा कि मानसून की वजह से again the impact of El Nino it can further worsen the situation at the food inflation front. And the government it is managed to sustain its infrastructure spending across the country. आप यहाँ positives में capital expenditure की बात कर सकते हो. So in this scenario, multinational firms जो है they are increasingly looking at the country as part of the China plus one strategy. So this is also another important dimension which can help in attracting more investments towards India. And optimistic assessment of the state of Indian economy, it has put forth by Nilesh Shah, who is a part-time member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. And he also pointed out that there are pain points as well. मतलब concerns क्या हैं या ऐसे areas जहाँ पे obviously we need to look at things, monitor things. Obviously they're important. And again, जो challenging या pain points हैं, export sector, its future growth, that is one of them. And growth it has been uneven. So large section of population hai that is benefiting, they are not benefiting as much, but those at the bottom half of the pyramid, they have not participated in the growth story, especially COVID-19 के बाद. So जो bottom half of the pyramid है, again वहाँ पे उनके लिए हम क्या steps ले सकते हैं so that they also become a part of this growth story. Several indications है of distress, rural real wages की अगर आप बात करें, so they have been at almost stagnant level. More households they are availing work under MG Narega, so this is also one of the negative indications. जब demand for the work under MG Narega it increases, so it is somewhere not showing a good picture at the employment generation या unemployment level की अगर हम बात करें, FMCG companies they have not seen much volume growth in the consumer staples. So again, यहाँ पे भी हम rural areas के अगर demand revival की बात करें तो that is not so, we can say, promising. And though the underlying conditions for a pickup in the investment activity that exists, so that is going to be a great booster for the Indian economy's growth. So there's no room for complacency. So several countries they have witnessed spurts of growth, and very small subset they have actually managed to grow at high rates over decades. So economists they have said the Indian economy needs to grow at 7.6% of the next 2.5 decades to achieve high income status by 2047. Obviously, because we aspire to be a developed country by then, when we'll be completing 100 years of independence. So if we want to be a developed country, तो उसमें जो हम कैटेगरी बात करते हैं इनकम स्टेटस की, तो हाई इनकम कैटेगरी के लिए अगर हमें वहां तक रीच करना है, तो we need to grow at 7.6% over the next, can say, 2.5 decades. So almost for 25 years. And business as usual approach obviously nahi help karne wali, it is not going to be sufficient. So or kya extra efforts required hai, we need to be on our toes, we need to work at war footing so as to be there as and fulfill our vision for 2047. So policy framework that must be guided by the objective of raising countries growth prospects over the medium to the long term. तो यहाँ पे हम बात करेंगे inclusive growth कैसे हम ensure कर सकते हैं. So it requires concerted and urgent action. Standing with the farmers, so agricultural policy, it has to be farmer centric, rational MSP, that is better option than loan waivers, and it should be made a legal right. So MSP, it needs to be made a legal right. So the writer is Bhupender Singh Hooda, so you can expect some political tone of this article and you can just go through it. मतलब यहाँ पे MSP के लिए जो formula use किया जाता है उसके ऊपर बात की गई है. And so MSP is the minimum price of the agriculture produce that is necessary to keep agriculture financially viable. So financial viability of agriculture के लिए क्या और steps ले सकते हैं उसके बारे में आप थोड़ा सोच सकते हो. Livelihood of about 50% of the country's population it depends upon agriculture and agriculture related activities. तो यहाँ पे आप सोच सकते हो कि how you can ensure कि people they move out of the agriculture sector and move towards manufacturing and services sector. So manufacturing sector में we have huge potential and then हम बात भी करते हैं importance of its growth and potential of growth in manufacturing sector. So उसके लिए और क्या अलग से government initiatives ले रही है and how you can ensure that the workers they move out of the agriculture sector towards manufacturing sector. Then natural disasters or market forces they are also hurting the farmers and obviously जो natural disasters हैं आने वाले time में उनकी frequency increase होने वाली है, so this needs to be an important element of the farmers policy. And radical change in the approach to agriculture it has become necessary now. So we need to accept that farmer it is not just medium or a machine to increase the crop productivity, but human being who wants to enjoy the comforts of the modern world as well. So this is also his fundamental right. So therefore, agriculture policy of our country it should not only be production centric नहीं होनी चाहिए, but farmer centric भी होनी चाहिए. So space junk के बारे में अगर हम बात करें तो recently we are seeing कि ISRO rocket debris it hits Australia. So we have concluded the object is most likely debris from an expended third stage of PSLV, which is operated by ISRO, according to the Australian Space Agency. So this is the picture. And यहाँ हम space junk के बारे में बात करें तो are such incidents क्या ऐसे incidents normal हैं? So जब हम junk from the space objects falling to the earth, they are not unheard of. Obviously, this is not happening for the first time, but most such incidents they involve relatively small fragments from the rockets that survive the friction of the atmosphere and they drop back on Earth. So they do not make big news, but almost most of the times we see कि space junks they fall into या तो oceans, thus posing little danger to human population. So that is one concern, the danger to human population. And most of the cases में हमने यही witness किया है कि जो भी debris है that falls into the ocean. But obviously then again we can't take it for granted and assume कि हमेशा ही ऐसा होने वाला है. But there have been few highly publicized falls as well. Like recent time we saw a large chunk of 25-ton Chinese rocket fell into Indian Ocean. Most famous such cases that of Skylab Space Station, which is a predecessor to the currently operational International Space Station. It disintegrated in 1979. So uske bhi large chunks it fell into the Indian Ocean, some of them falling on land in Western Australia also. So definitely आप बोल सकते हो yes, it is a threat to life, it is dangerous, it is threat to property also, and even when it is falling into the oceans also, so it is more likely since 70% of the earth's surface that is covered by ocean. So it is threat to marine life and source of pollution also, and also it can be possibly source of any kind of natural disaster in the form of tsunamis also. So there are no record incidents of these falling objects causing any appreciable damage anywhere on the, अभी तक ऐसा कुछ हमने नहीं देखा, ऐसा कुछ रिकॉर्ड नहीं किया गया है जब हम डैमेज की बात करें या कोई ऐसा मेजर डैमेज because of such space junks falling on the earth. So what happens if these objects they cause damage? So there are international regulations which are governing space debris. So it includes the junk which is falling back on Earth. So जो most of the spacefaring countries and they are signatories to this convention on international liability for the damage caused by the space objects. So again इसके convention किस चीज के बारे में बात करता है, और थोड़ी इसकी details, important provisions पता होना important है. So this convention is one of the several international agreements that complement Outer Space Treaty, an overarching framework guiding the behavior of the countries in space. So that is what the Outer Space Treaty is all about. Liability Convention deals mainly with the damage caused by the space objects to other space assets, but it also applies to the damage which is caused by falling objects on the Earth. So this thing is covered under this convention. And it also makes launching country absolutely liable to pay the compensation अगर कोई damage होता है. Again, recently we saw Nigeria में there's a military coup. So why we see कि जो Western African nations हैं, they have troops here. So Nigeria पूरे वर्ल्ड की one of the most poorest countries है. And अभी recently Nigeria में क्या हुआ है कि जो military है, it has ousted the elected president, democratically elected president, and this is what is called a military coup. So this is the exact location of Niger, and apart from this आप find out कर सकते हो कि कौन सी bordering countries है. So it is a landlocked country. So a former French colony. So it is a former French colony. Nigeria, it is a key ally in the West fight against the Islamist insurgencies in Africa's Sahel region. So ये जो northern and western region है of Africa, this is called the Sahel region. So it is basically an ally of the Western world in terms of fighting against the Islamist insurgencies in Africa. So obviously in this particular region, and consequently it has received millions of dollars in aid, and currently it houses the military troops of multiple nations. So बहुत सारी countries के military troops are located in Nigeria because of this thing. So जो भी recently coup हुआ military coup हुआ, it is brought with its significant anti-West sentiments that has strained these relations. So we see thousands of pro-junta supporters, they took to the streets in the capital and they're denouncing France and waving Russian flags instead. So while Moscow's involvement in the coup, if it remains unclear as of now, and Niger, they see Russia as a powerful alternative to its former colonizer. So junta, it has not yet picked a side yet. Okay, it would be going which side. But if again Russia makes an entry, so again things would change here also geopolitically, and dynamics are definitely going to change. So notably, Niger, it is of particular interest to the global powers due to its massive reserves of uranium, and these are the seventh largest in the world. And list of foreign countries with the military presence in Nigeria. So the examples are France, US, Italy, European Union is there, and Russia, or the Wagner Group जिसके हम बात करते हैं, it is there. So जब हम बात करते हैं the entire development of the African continent, तो उस terms में this can be cited as one of the examples कि mineral exploration के term में that is one of the dimensions जहाँ पे growth possible है. एंड अगेन इस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में भी आपको क्लैरिटी होनी चाहिए कि अफ्रीकन कॉन्टिनेंट के लिए इंडिया ने क्या इंपॉर्टेंट स्टेप्स लिए फॉर इट्स डेवलपमेंट, एंड आने वाले टाइम में और हम कौन से एरियाज एक्सप्लोर कर सकते हैं, क्या अपॉर्चुनिटीज है फॉर फर्दर कोऑपरेशन, एंड देन चैलेंजेस क्या है टू इंडियाज ग्रोइंग वी कैन से क्लोजनेस और कोऑपरेशन एट द डेवलपमेंटल फ्रंट. सो वहाँ पे चाइना का रोल भी आ जाता है. एंड अगेन नाइजीरिया के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में अगर हम बात करें तो सिंस Wagner Group या Russia is also present, so कहीं ना कहीं China and Russia even they can change things here as well. Now coming to employment picture की अगर हम बात करें इंडिया में, so more Indians they are currently employed than in the pre-pandemic period. Okay, so share of entrepreneurship की बात करें which is a small part of the whole, that is rising. यहाँ पे हम growth देख रहे हैं entrepreneurship में. However, this is largely due to rise in self-employment. So self-employment is increasing. Basically, people are moving more towards job creators instead of being job seekers. So this group it is engaged mainly in the low skill work. So ये next point आ जाता है as we move forward कि entrepreneurship में तो we are seeing growth, self employment में हम growth देख रहे हैं, but low skill area में we are seeing the growth. And जब ड्राइवर्स की बात करूँ, repairmen, agents, brokers, various kinds are the low skill work. So where Indians work, यहाँ पे all occupational groups का data is there, time period and the number. Then business में या salaried employees, farmers, small traders and wage laborers में भी we are having the distribution depicted over here. So in terms of this, we are seeing maximum people are engaged as small traders and wage laborers. Then it is followed by farmers, and after that salaried employees, and then we have businesses. So ये chronology भी आपको help कर सकती है. Then rise of self-employment, we are seeing maximum in self-employment entrepreneurs. Businesses में इतना नहीं देख रहे हैं, and qualified self-employed professionals में इतना कोई major change नहीं है, it's almost stagnant. Types of self-employment क्या है? Businesses हैं, qualified professionals और self-employed. तो उसमें भी आप देखोगे qualified professionals almost negligible है, businesses का कम share है, ज़्यादा है self-employed. So how many Indians they are employed and how do they work? So here chart 1, it maps employment in India क्या है. So data is showing कि जो number of employed individuals हैं during January-April 2023 period, they stood at 412.9 million. So this is the entire figure of employment in India. Chart 2, it tracks employment in the 4 main categories. This we have seen. First, in the order of how Indians they are employed. So bulk of जो Indians हैं, they work either as या तो farmers में हैं और they work as wage laborers या small traders. मतलब हो गया low skilled area में we are seeing maximum amount of Indians engaged in work. And salaried class, it comprises the third biggest category. So secondly, we see out of these four categories of employed people, only one has recovered to the pre-pandemic level, that is those employed in business of some kind. So बस वहीं पे हमने देखी है कि conditions have recovered and restored back to pre-pandemic times. So बाकी सारी employment areas, they're still below their pre-pandemic numbers. And so does this mean कि entrepreneurship, it has been rising in India or not? So एक sense में at one level we can say कि it is increasing. And it would suggest that Indian economy it is creating the right incentives for the private sector to reach out for Indian dream. But closer examination अगर हम करें, closely चीजों को समझने की कोशिश करें, explore करें, तो it actually basically reveals more complex pattern. So what is that? Let's understand it. Businesses, they can be subcategorized into three groups. So एक हो गया business persons, qualified self-employed professionals, जिसमें हम बात करेंगे people who run their own professional enterprises and they leverage their own expertise like doctors हो गया, lawyers, consultants. And तीसरी कैटेगरी होगी सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड की. So it refers to ऐसे entrepreneurs who run their own business enterprises, but these enterprises they do not leverage much financial capital या human capital या even professional skills इतनी ज्यादा employed नहीं होती है in terms of the third category. So composition में काफी change हमें देखने को मिला है since 2016. So according to the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy's data, it started releasing its employment data in 2016. So share of business people जो है it has been falling, while जो share of self-employed entrepreneurs हैं जिसमें इतना ज़्यादा professional skills required नहीं है, that is rising at almost the same rate. And the share of qualified professionals है it fell visibly between 2016-17, but it has been largely steady at the small number ever since. So ये कुछ compositional changes हुए हैं. So क्या हमारे लिए major takeaways हैं? So major takeaway is the nature of employment that Indians are increasingly engaged in. That is a major theme that we can learn about. So macro level की अगर हम बात करें तो number of people who are seen as comprising the business class, basically the well-to-do entrepreneurs, they are seeing a secular decline. That is, there are fewer and fewer Indians in this category despite a rise of India's population. So kahin na kahin it is showing कि we are more moving towards low skilled work or jobs. So there is a decline in both the absolute number also and in the share of the total as well. Then actual rise of Indian entrepreneurs is happening in self-employment category, which is reflecting poorly on the economic conditions. क्योंकि हमने देखा कि self-employment वाली category में इतना आपको जो professional expertise है वो required नहीं है, तो कहीं ना कहीं it is more of low skilled work. So it's likely that ये जो shift है in composition of employment in India from हम बात करें business class towards self-employment, it does not indicate increase in real entrepreneurship, but it is a merely reflection of poor employment opportunities in the economy. So जो लोग demand करते हैं high skilled jobs या the jobs which match their skills, वहाँ पे we are seeing huge gap and that is increasing with time. So economy page पे we see बैंक डिपॉजिट्स लास्ट 5 years के डेटा को एनालाइज करें तो जो वुमेन का शेयर है इट राइजेस टू फर्स्टली 20.5%. दिस इज वन थिंग. देन पर कैपिटा डिपॉजिट्स जो हैं दे हैव इंक्रीज्ड up by rupees 4600 in the last 5 years. So women's per capita rise in the deposits. Rural areas में it was around 2500, semi-urban में 3600, urban areas में around 9700, metropolitan में only 800 rupees. So all India level पे कहीं ना कहीं India में जो women का per capita rise हुआ in terms of deposit, that is 4600 rupees in the last 5 years. So overall deposit banking sector के increase हुए हैं by 10%. And share of individuals in the total deposits would decline हुए हैं. So हम बोल सकते हैं कि अगर बैंकिंग सेक्टर में जो ओवरऑल डिपॉजिट्स इंक्रीज हुए हैं एंड इंडिविजुअल्स कम हुए, तो कहीं ना कहीं इज इट इंडिकेटिंग टुवर्ड्स इंक्रीज्ड इनकम इनइक्वालिटी और मोर कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ऑफ वेल्थ? एंड ओवरऑल जो पर कैपिटा वुमेन डिपॉजिट्स हैं दे हैव इंक्रीज्ड, so we are seeing more women participation, or they are moving more towards high skilled works. So rural areas, they are the major source of women deposits. So again, this is also a good indicator कि rural areas में से हम देख रहे हैं कि maximum जो deposits आए हैं from women, that is from rural areas. So yes, we can say कि real sense में कोई development actually हो रही है. So that is all for today, and thank you so much for joining us. I hope you are clear with all the topics, and to subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and also hit the like button for this video. Thank you so much for joining us.